One,
Right, yeah.
That's
three.
burn out.
It's not a podcast till she says that, by the way.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
No, it's, and I mean, you got Guy Harvey's a huge proponent for shark conservation, and everybody sees Shark Week. Shark Week doesn't help.
Doesn't help at all.
No, man. Sharks are all important. Until, to the people in Ohio, they're watching Shark Week and living vicariously through us.
Right. Sure.
But it's, I mean, everybody loves sharks.
Another thing, too, is like in our area here, we obviously feel it differently than they do in other parts of the planet.
Of course.
Because this is really a heavily concentrated area.
Right.
You can't, it's almost like talking like, all right, you want Manhattan to make the rules for the rest of the country? You know what I mean? You can't, because they live differently there. Yep. It's a different jungle there. It's a different jungle here in our water. It's just not the same.
I don't know about whitetail management in anywhere.
Right.
And they don't know about shark management. And, it becomes a conservation issue, because us as a limit-oriented species, we are going to try to catch our limit of fish.
Yeah.
And so if we lose 15 in pursuit of a 10-fish limit, well, now we've kept 25 fish, which is a conservation issue. Now we're dealing with catching twice, 3 times your limit every day that you go, if that's what you do all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yes, I'm guilty of losing cobias, and I'm guilty of losing permits and kingfish, and I haven't had a sailfish eaten yet, but I know lots of people who have.
Well, the guys that sit on some of the wrecks and just hook permit after permit after permit, and they all get eaten by sharks.
Yeah.
And if they're not eaten when you catch them, when you release it, they're eaten 30 feet from the boat.
Right.
And, it's just like they don't get it that they're just feeding the sharks and killing fish.
They're just feeding the sharks, and they're territorial. It's like once they're there, they're not going to leave. As long as they're being fed, they're not going to go anywhere.
They've figured out that they hang around with the wrecks where the other fish are. Fishermen go to the wrecks to catch fish. Sharks figure out that there's a bunch of hurt fish coming from the little floating things. Yeah. They just hang out. Down in the submarine off Key West.
Yeah, God.
We would go down there and chum with live pilchers, and we used to catch blackfin tunas. We had everything come up behind the boat. Wahoo, sailfish, blackfin tunas, bonitas, all kinds of things.
Jacks.
Yeah, jacks, all kinds of stuff. But mostly it's the blackfin tuna. And, you used to be able to catch them on fly and stuff like that, where it took a little while. Now, like Crossett goes down, they fish with 30 or 40-pound braid, crank down as much as you can, hooks the tuna, you'll land the first one. You might land the second one, and you'll lose the third one, and you will never land another. You look down, there's 400 or 500-pound sharks just circling around right under the boat. They don't even chase them. They don't even chase the fish anymore.
No, they're just waiting.
They just sit there and wait for the fish to come back to the boat, and then they eat it.
And they don't even go get the fish on the end of your string.
No.
They just sit around the boat till that fish comes into the window and bang, it's game on. They
don't have to work for them anymore.
And, you pull up with an engine, the engine's running, and you look down and you go, oh, here they are, and
they've been trained.
We did the same thing in Marty Arosky.
Dog,
With Marty Arosky, we went out to the Everglades. He likes to catch just fly fish for all the little brim and the guapotes and the peacock bass and all the silly ass little
the exotics and all that
exotic things. Yeah. It's fun. It's just nice little light 5-weight fly rod. But boy, we had 2 like 9-10 foot alligators. As soon as they saw that boat, they came up and sat right next to us the whole time. They just never left the boat, and they would go after every fish that came in, chasing it around and pulling it away from them and stuff. But they just knew that boat has fish. These are alligators. They're the dumbest fucking things on the planet.
Right.
Yeah. They
but
know.
They're a predator.
Yeah, but they've been around 100 million years, so you got to give them credit.
But they know that boat means hurt fish.
Exactly.
Right.
Somehow they floated. They got the boat. I got pictures of Marty just standing on the back of the boat, and the alligators is looking at him, saying, "You got any food? Give me another fish. Give me another fish. I missed the last one."
Right.
Well, listen, man. Thank you guys for coming on the show.
It's our pleasure.
Right.
We're not on it yet, are we?
We're on it.
We're on it.
Yeah, we're rolling. We're rolling. Yeah, that's kind of. Listen, this is what we do. We just hang out. We drink some rum. We just shoot the shit, and there we are. It's not rocket science. I think. Listen, at the end of the day, we're going to solve all the world's problems. I'm convinced of it. And we're going to do it.
No, let's not go there, please.
No, I think we already did for about an hour or so before the show. Anyway, so I want to welcome you guys both to the Connected by Water podcast. powered by Joey Cardi Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, and fueled by our very good friends at Papa's PLR Room, who remind you never to be a spectator. I am here with my good friends, Rufus Wakeman, Pat Ford. Now, Rufus is not a stranger to the show. You are a legend, my friend. Thank you for coming on very early on in this endeavor and supporting me in this, whatever we're doing here. I don't know. Whatever it is, we've done it for, 154, 153 episodes, something like that.
Awesome. Congratulations.
This is 154, yeah. So
wow,
we're still kicking.
That's impressive.
Somewhere there. Well, we couldn't really do it without the support of Joey and Papa's Pilar and Mike Myatt and Stephen Groth and all those guys who really helped us keep the lights on. So thank you to them. And the support of Carlene, the world's best bartender, who informed us before we started on the show that she had a BB stuck in her ass for the last 38 years.
Wow.
So that you learn something new every day.
Lucky
right?
BB.
You want to elaborate on that a little bit?
I'm not sure how to segue into that.
What?
It wasn't stuck in my ass, number one.
Okay.
It was in my thigh.
Okay.
So there's not been many things that have been stuck in my ass.
Okay.
But no, I was about 4 years old and my brother shot me with a BB gun. We were talking guns earlier and, it just kind of happens. You grow up in the 80s and 37-something years later.
You grew up in the 80s and you get shot. That's just how it is.
I just wanted to figure out, why it never came out. I got kids now, and if my daughter said she got shot with a BB, you'd kind of want to assess the situation. Not wait till I had to go get an MRI 37 years later and I couldn't go to the doctor's appointment because I've got a magnetical pull,
All right.
So, but it's out now and
feeling free?
Very liberating.
Yeah, we all feel better for you.
Well, that you've seen the video of my ass and BB, yes.
Yeah, we're going to have to put that up later.
Oh, man.
And Pat,
that's great.
Literally, we talked about this. I've been a big fan of yours for so long. Someone artistically that I've looked up to for the longest time. Really honored that you're here. Thank you so much.
Thanks
Thank you so much for being here.
Took you 154 casts to ask me to come up here, but
took me 154 episodes to get the balls to ask you to come on the show. So thank you very much for coming on. The proper introduction for you, for people that don't know you, that may be listening to the show or watching the show on YouTube, please subscribe. You're a master photographer. That's how a lot of people know you, but you have pedigree beyond belief in this industry. And and we talked about your involvement with the Golden Fly earlier, which I think is up there with the most respectable thing that you could ever achieve in this industry with your role in that tournament. You're part of the Papas family. We love you dearly. And in case you don't know, if you just look on the cover of most magazines every month, multiple covers every month for God knows how many years straight, that's Pat Ford. So thank you very much for being here.
What didn't you have 2 or 3 covers last month?
I had four
last month.
See, 4.
and you've had 4 numerous times.
Which is one was in a magazine in France, which really freaks me out.
Really?
It's all right.
Yeah.
Hey, you're reaching the world.
Yeah.
Very nice. It's fun. That's what I like. I love the covers.
Yeah, your work's impeccable and phenomenal, and artist. I'm just so happy that you're here. So thank you very much. And Rufus, it's always like, when do we not talk and we just go on for like 2 hours straight? So, it's a shoe-in home run. You guys, the reason that you're both on the show at the same time is you both just took a trip to the Galápagos Islands, right? We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about some of your many adventures that you guys had there. I thought it was really, really interesting, some of the things that you had to say after the trip. We're going to talk about that. We're definitely going to talk about some conservation issues, the state of our state, and your guys' role in that. In particular. Real quick though, I have to bring up our Starbright do-gooder of the week. So I'm going to get that teed up real quick. So every week we feature our Starbright do-gooder of the week, and Corey and Derek Redwine, they nominate someone in our industry that's doing good, that's an ambassador or steward of the environment, and that's just doing the right thing.
Right, exactly.
We want to celebrate it as something special, but we really like to say this is just something common that everyone should be doing. So this week's do-gooder is locals who clean the river, kind of closer up to near you guys in the Indian River, is Johnny Jessica there with his daughters Cameron and Carly. So thank you guys very much for being our Starbright do-gooders of the week, and you win the whole $200 bucket full of salt off, and the wash down, the reggae sponge, and all the great environmentally friendly but very effective products by Starbright. So thank you very much. So anyway, Galápagos Islands.
Pretty cool.
You've been there before, though, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Actually, Rufus and I went years and years ago, and the trip was a disaster.
Oh, my
Really?
God.
It was absolutely the trip from hell.
It was horrific.
We had Tim Choate set it up when he was just sort of trying to get into the Galápagos fishery. They sort of just opened it up to sport fishing. And he set this trip up, and it was a disaster. The boat was terrible. Half of it didn't work. We were on the wrong island.
You were explaining that to me before. There's there's a right on. It's not
there's a right island.
It's
and
not
a
just
wrong
go
island.
to the Galapagos and fish.
No, you got to go to
be in the
San
right space.
Cristobal. San Cristobal is the way I fish. We were at Santa Cruz or Santa Rosa.
San Isabella.
Yeah, someplace.
San Isabella, yeah.
And I think the town was Santa Rosa or something. Anyway,
Could be, yeah.
we were there, and this is a long story. We get there, and the captain comes up and says, "Hey, Pat, hey, I've heard you were coming. It's great." He says, "Why are you here now?" And I go, "What?" He says, "Why are you here now?" I said, "Because when Choate told me to come."
Right.
He says, "Oh, well, this is only good like 5 days before the new moon or after the new moon, and you're on the opposite. So there's no fish."
Wow.
So I'm going, okay. And then I said, but Tim said that if there were no fish here, that we could go over to San Cristobal because there were fish over there.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "Oh, sure, well, fine. Well, let's go out today and we'll fish around and see what we can come up with. And if it's no good, we'll go over to San Cristobal. We'll leave early in the morning, fish all day, overnight in San Cristobal, fish all day, drive back. So everything will be good."
Right.
So we catch nothing. I think we saw one fish or something. We caught nothing. We come back and he says, "I'll get you set up in San Cristobal." So we see him at dinner. He said, "Got a problem. The president of Ecuador is touring the islands, and he's in San Cristobal, and they've booked the entire hotel." Back in these days, like 2000 or something. It's the only hotel really that was decent. So you can't go.
Okay.
So we drove around Frogwater for 2 or 3 more days and caught like one marlin or something or another. And we caught nothing. So and we were staying in a place that was an eco lodge.
Yeah.
Don't ever go to an eco lodge.
Right. Big red flag.
Eco means no air conditioning.
Right.
Yeah. In the tropics, you don't want to go to an eco lodge.
And rainwater, probably,
yeah,
right?
Probably.
Yeah.
And there's a sign in there that says, "Don't worry, most of the bugs aren't poisonous."
Come on.
Right.
Yeah, in the room. And this was really a great trip. So anyway, we get back and the president of the IGFA, Rob Kramer, was over in San Cristobal, and he was coming back the day we were going. So he and I were talking about the trip. So I get back, he calls us, says, "How was your trip?" I said, "It was terrible." He said, "Really?" He said, "We had 2 boats that fished for, 3/4 of a day, 2 days. We took the hooks out of 123 marlin in San Cristobal."
Yeah.
And we saw like 2.
It was
4
really
days
bad.
over at the other place.
I mean, the highlight for me was I looked at the left flat line and there was a, 600 or 700 pound sea lion under it. I got real excited and oh God. And then, I see the fins go like this, because he's underneath the bait, just swimming along. And we're pulling lures and
right.
It was interesting, but I will say that it is a magnificent area. Being a World Heritage UNESCO type site,
right.
It's all protected and the wildlife's fantastic. We all grew up seeing the big tortoises and the marine iguanas and the blue-footed boobies. So there's a certain allure to that just by itself.
Yeah, you can look at postcards and see that, though. We were down there for the marlin, and we didn't get any. But
right,
anyway,
but
so wait, you got to be
fast forward
you got to be like an
years.
Ecuadorian citizen to
yes.
live there.
They even have a boat there.
Right,
yeah.
right.
Yeah,
No,
to even
and
have
you
a boat
can't
there.
even bring a boat in, and if you do bring a boat in, you got to stop 40 miles offshore,
Right.
and show them on your plotter where you stopped and drifted, because you got to scrub the bottom. And they're very, very adamant, and you're only in, and it's like $20,000 to stay there for whether it's a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks or a month. It's like 20. It's like one number.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to pay $20,000. This is what Javier was telling us. And I'm like, well, that's kind of out, and I can't imagine coming here. And most of the boats are outboards. They're 4 strokes. And
Because the diesel gas is so bad.
yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, flash forward, my friend Javier Guevara has set up this Ecuador fly fishing tours company.
Right.
And I've been to a couple of his peacock bass lodges and stuff. And he said, "I'm setting up operation in the Galapagos."
Mm-hmm.
I said, "Good, I'm in." I don't know what was going on, but
You're
that'd be
in.
better.
You're in, even though you had this shitty trip.
Well,
Yeah,
he was in San Cristobal.
Right. We're in San Cristobal.
So you just feel like you need to redemption.
Yeah,
trip,
this
right?
was
Well, I wanted to go.
redemption.
I mean,
Yeah, all right.
he says, "I got it figured out, And I said, what kind of boat are we in? He said, oh, it's custom made in the islands. I go, oh, God.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
It's an eco boat.
Yeah, it's an eco boat. So anyway, we get there and it's 38 feet. It's got 3 outboards on it. It's fabulous.
I want a half a dozen of them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the most comfortable 38-foot outboard. I mean, it's Spartan. It's not Bristol. It's not teak. It's not.
Yeah.
It's pretty stripped down, but my God, the boat's attractive. It performs really well. Now, here's the gig. He's got triple 200s. So he's got 600 horsepower on a 38-foot boat. The center engine is bolted straight and has no steering attached to it. And this one has a ram, and this one doesn't. And the tie beam, the tie rod goes this, and then down and underneath the other engine, up and into this engine. And everything's just a little loose, There's no bushings or anything. But it works fine. And when you get there, he shuts the center engine off. But it's a 38-foot outboard with a fly bridge. It's
big
really
open
nice.
cockpit, nice little comfortable benches inside, no air conditioning, but very fun. I was very surprised. And Rufus, he had the same reaction to what?
I mean, unlike
it's built in the islands. What can you build in the islands?
Right.
But anyway, so we get there.
I mean, surprisingly nice.
And we get there the first time, and these guys had never fly fished. The captain had never fly fished before. And they had Javier had brought a mate from Guatemala who knew the rigging and knew the teasing and stuff, and he was a big help. And but the captain had no clue of how to fight a fish on a fly rod.
Right.
And these are 200-pound striped marlin on a fly rod, and he'd be going all different directions. It was a little hard landing anything. The first trip.
Well, they got it down. I mean,
they got it down because this year they were perfect.
You went
perfect.
back. So this was your third trip back.
Third trip with Javier, yeah.
Right. So it was my first trip, and I've got to say it was fantastic. And then after us, Laura Jessen, Team Fish Tank, which is a huge name in the fishing industry.
For sure.
Her and her cruise ship. Well, her and her husband, I guess, or whoever she travels with. I've never met Laura, so I can't really say. But they came in, they did well, went back. Then Bill Pino came in from Squid Nation.
Right.
He had his week, and then Laura came back again, and they had fantastic fishing.
Bill went after you guys went on this last trip.
Yeah, but Bill's been there a few times.
I talked to Bill a couple weeks ago, actually. Yeah. And I think we actually got a question teed up from Bill here today to ask you guys. But
cool.
Yeah.
I got a text from Javier. They released 23 marlin a couple of days ago.
Yeah,
really?
Cool.
We were there for 5 days of fishing. We raised 147 marlin, but one day we only raised 10. So we had 137 marlin in 4 days of fishing. That's a lot of marlin.
Yeah,
they were hardly any under 200 pounds.
Yeah,
the biggest one we got was probably 275 or
at least. Yeah.
And you landed how many on fly?
I don't know. We weren't counting.
Counting.
Rufus released 143, I think.
Right.
Well,
I mean, there's so much food there that they charge the teasers. It looks really good. You switch into neutral, you throw the fly, and where's the marlin? He's gone. And Javier's got a lot of underwater footage of them, and they just fade out.
Yeah.
They come paddling up, and then, boom, they just drop off. Right at that moment, maybe when the pitch of the engines changes or something. But when you get a hot one and you get the fly in the water, it's game on. I mean, they're head and shoulders out of the water, piling on it. It's everything you want in a fly bite.
Yeah.
And
they're big fish. But the trolling with the outboards is totally different than trolling with your normal sport fishermen.
Right.
The prop wash is a lot more. So we had problems with the popper flies because they get lost in the prop wash and stuff.
Right.
And also when you take the boat out of neutral, your sport fishermen it'll cruise along
take it
for
out
about
of gear,
take it into neutral out of gear. They'll it'll glide along for 50 or 100 yards practically.
Right.
They take the outboard out, it stops.
I mean,
it glides about 10 feet, it stops.
If you're going up sea, it's almost you're going backwards by the time you're throwing the fly.
Yeah, and that fish has to be hooked before
that fish
has
that's
to be real quick.
It's got to be before the engines go out of gear for it to be really caught on fly.
It's a difficult procedure period just to do the bait and switch with a fly.
Yeah,
and then when you put a few different little obstacles in the way, it becomes even weirder. It's still a lot of fun, and I'd rather do that than drop a bait back. And, just, to me, it's the ultimate game. I mean, we're using a leader that's that big. It's 12 inches long, then into 18, 20 inches, a 20-pound tippet, and then the rest of your butt section and your fly line. And, it's, God, I mean, you got to measure all this crap. And, I do it all home and bring it down there. And I got, 25 flies ready to go. And if I don't have the right stuff, then I'm feverishly putting stuff together. And, hey, you got a yardstick? No, well, we only deal with meters down here. And I'm like, oh, okay, So, but it just adds a lot of, it's, fly fishing for billfish or fly fishing, period. If you do it by IGFA rules, and if that matters to you, that some organization has put a set of parameters in place that make this really difficult, a 12-inch leader, you're throwing at something with an 18-inch or 2-foot spike on his face.
Right.
That all he's got to do is go like that to your tip of class, and it's over. And so I've always tried to. All the billfish I've ever caught, with the exception of 2, have been on IGFA class tippets, just because I prefer to do it that way.
Which
yes, it's more work. I mean, I've caught them on 8-pound, I've caught them on 4-pound, I've caught them on 16 and 20. But I like the knots. I like to know that I have 9 knots between my first hook and my fly line.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of preparation, a lot of mental playing games and doing it and bringing spare stuff with you. And it's just, I find that to be the allure of it for me. A lot of people don't care. They're just going to tie 80-pound or 100-pound to the fly and let it rip.
Right.
And that's cool too. That's fishing with fly tackle, not necessarily fly fishing. There's a little bit of a difference. It just, it's just how you want to be. I know when I put my head on the pillow at night, I go, God, I caught 2 today on regular IGFA stuff, man, and that's great,
Sure.
I
mean, at the end of the day, when you get to the level of fishing that you guys have been through, I mean, you kind of look at it that way, don't you?
I do.
I mean, you guys have caught so many fish during the course of your lives in every way possible.
I just want pictures of them now.
Right.
Yeah, he doesn't even care.
Well, I don't even care. I'll catch one fish in the morning. Okay, I'm done. Well, I'm going to get my camera and everybody else to go to work.
Exactly.
I got a story from the Seychelles. Talk about IGFA fly records. First time I went to the Seychelles Islands, we're on a boat. We're leaving Farquhar and we're heading up to Providence. And the guy say, bring all your tackle out. We'll get you all rigged up, get it ready out. So I show up, and I've got a whole handful of 20-pound IGFA tarpon leaders with 60, 80-pound shock tip. This is way back when. And so I'm spreading it all out, and everybody's laughing at me. I'm going, why? What's so funny? So you can't land a giant trevally on that outfit. I said, well, I've caught some pretty big fish on these IGFA things. Nah, he said, you can't catch a GT. As soon as it hooks it heads to the first Carl head and it'll break you off every time. I said, well, what do you guys use? He goes, we use straight 100-pound right to the tippet, right from the fly line to the fly.
Right.
I'm going, okay, you must break a lot of rods. And, we break a lot of rods, break a lot of fly lines. The problem with not using a tippet is you can't break something off. You know, you're going to break the fly line or you're going to break the backing or something, and it gets bad. So anyway, there's a photographer, writer over in London named Matt Harris, who's a buddy of mine. And this is the first time I met Matt. So he comes over and he looks at all my little leaders and stuff, and he's a very good fisherman.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, and so he says, Patrick, these are wonderful. These are all tied to IGFA specifications. And I go, yeah. He says, you know what IGFA means out here? And I go, no. He says, it means it got fucking away.
And there's a lot of truth to that.
Okay, there's a lot of truth for that. So if they want to catch something, they have a different set of rules.
I remember sitting on the top of the boat that night with Timmy Babbage and those guys when you and I went back a few years later to the Seychelles, and Keith Rose Innocent, Arnaud Mattei, and these guys are rigging up this little splice gig with that Gouda Broad sort of braided mono and, whipping off the ends. And they're literally taking 130 and butting it up to the fly line and pulling everything tight and whipping it off and gluing it. And they got this nice little splice about that long so it'll go into the guides and, whatever. And, literally, it's 130 pound right to the fly.
Wow.
And it's just... Okay,
and these GCs
let's
are
go.
getting them.
When in Rome, do what they do in Rome.
Yeah, until the fly line breaks. And you got to start out with a new fly line and everything else.
I call ones probably 60 pounds, 50, 60 pounds and 18 inches of water. He catches one 100-plus pounds. It takes him from the shore break out there and back. I mean, I was waiting when I caught mine. He was in a boat, and it's just enormous.
It's a hell of a fish.
Oh, God, it's so
really
cool. And they've got some now with all the technology and the GoPros and all this stuff. They got some bites on fly of these things that are underwater bites.
The things eat birds.
I know. They eat birds. They eat,
if you can imagine a 100-pound Jack Crevalle, that's what a GT is.
Right.
And maybe a little meaner because they're bigger, but they're the one that I hooked, we were floating around in a little eddy inside the break by an island, and we could see him surfing over the sandbar in the waves. And we caught a couple, and I said, I'm waiting for a big one. So finally the guy said, okay, get ready, here. And these 3 come in over the wave, and they're huge. They're giants.
They're like this.
Yeah. It was 118 centimeters to the fork or something like that. So it comes in, and I throw a fly, I hook it, and I go, oh, God, what have I done? So it just takes off. And it just goes through the surf. So we have to follow it in our little boat through the surf. And it goes out, way out, over this, I bet it's 30 feet of water. Nothing but coral all around. All it had to do is go down, and it would cut me off instantly. So it gets past the coral, and now you drop off to about 1,000 feet of water. So I'm standing out here, and I've got this giant Crevalle in the Seychelles.
Was it like an atoll?
Yeah.
Providence Atoll.
They're all atolls. And now I'm in God knows how much bajillion feet of water, and this thing is straight down. I'm going to be here for 4 hours pulling up.
Yeah.
About 20 minutes, the thing comes up to the surface, looks around, swims back in, all over the coral, the 30-foot of coral, over the surf break again, and we landed right in the same little lagoon that I hooked it in. I mean, it was like, this thing is nuts. I don't know.
Yeah.
They are an incredible fish. I mean, they're when you get on the boat, you get in the dinghies to go out to the mothership to leave. You're there at Farquhar. They're all up in the shallows, and they're jet black.
Right.
They're black trevally. I mean, you could call them black trevallies. They just appear to be completely black. And, they'll take like a 12-pound or 15-pound tuna or something and throw it in the water, and it's just boom, and it just eviscerates. I mean, this tuna's gone in 3 seconds, 4 seconds. These trevally just eating it, and there's a big red spot in the water, and it's just, I mean, talk about a vicious fish.
Yeah.
Chris Sheeter figured out how to catch the records.
Yeah, he got about over Midway a bunch. He got a whole. He and Mike got a lot of them.
Yeah,
we had Mike on the show a few weeks ago.
Yeah, great. God,
and that was such a great episode, and he got a lot to talking about Tasmania and Africa, like Eastern Africa and all that, and it's just the stories he had to tell about the swordfish that he was catching off. It was just phenomenal.
Yep,
phenomenal stuff. I mean, I don't know what episode was, episode 140 something, but you got to. If anyone wants to hear about that, please go back and listen.
Yeah,
to
he
that.
does the
really
Guatemala thing for a few months, and then he jumps on a ship and goes around the world, and he does like the merchant marine thing, and
he's like one of the few guys that's got like, God, I can't remember what he said. He's got like all his licenses for all those big.
Yeah, like Master Unlimited, all ocean stuff. Yeah,
he's like one of the few guys that have like all of it under his belt.
Yeah, one of my instructors at FIT who signed off in 1985 on my first application for my first captain's license was a gentleman named Captain Justin Pasternak. And his license was Master Unlimited All Oceans. Mm-hmm. And, he ran 1,000-footers or 900-foot tankers, and just the nicest guy. He taught 2 classes at our school at Florida Institute of Technology, the Ralph Evinrude School of Marine Technology.
Right. That's in Jensen Beach, isn't it?
It used to be. I called it Club Tech.
Right.
It was great. I mean, if I stood on my desk, I could see the water from my dorm room, so it was a lot of fun. And I learned a lot and had a lot of fun, but he was a great guy. And just to have that endorsement on my first license application was great.
Yeah, it's cool. My sister studied marine biology at that institution for a while there, back in the 80s. So it was,
she folded up in August of 85.
Yeah.
And I think I got out. In March of '85.
Okay.
I got my 2-year degree and bailed.
I want to talk a little bit about, and to bring it back to the Galápagos a little bit, because I want to investigate that a little bit more, because you guys brought up Javier.
Yeah.
Right. And I want to talk about Javier for a little bit because he seemed like a really interesting operation that he's got going on. Because you said he's Chicago-based.
He's born in Ecuador, lives in Chicago. He was educated in Chicago.
Right.
Lives in Chicago, but he's getting ready to move back down to Quito.
And he runs these operations down there. And I thought that was really the most interesting
thing. He's got another
thing.
one in Colombia.
That the guy's kind of like got that whole like triangle effect of what his operation he's got.
He's got
going
the Galápagos. He's got a lodge in Colombia.
Right.
For Payara and peacock bass that I went to. I think he takes some trout fishing down in Patagonia. He does the fads off Costa Rica, which Rufus and I have done several times. And so he's got a whole different pogo stick series of trips, and they're all good. The kid really knows what he's doing.
Right.
Because he's perfected the Galápagos trip. The first time we were down there, I think we were one of the first people that he had. So we were sort of all figuring it out at the same time. And now he's got it.
This is the years and years ago trip you're talking
about.
No,
forget that. That's a nightmare. We don't think about that.
We don't talk.
We're now talking about Javier in the last 4 years. We had to take 220 off, but we were there in, I guess, 19, 21, 22 for me. And the first time we're going to different restaurants for dinner and on our own, and the hotel is about 100 yards from the dock. And you have to step over the sea lions to get to your boat and stuff. But he's got it dealt down now. He's got 3 hotels. You can get the expensive one, the middle one, or a less expensive one.
This is the hotel with the mural of Rufus in it?
We don't know which one.
That's actually like a sushi bar. It's actually Charles Darwin.
Yeah, but it looks exactly like Rufus. Yeah. But anyway,
so let me take my hat. It's bald and,
He's got your choice of hotels.
Yep.
He pays for all the food, which was a real problem when Rufus got down there.
Okay. Yeah, right.
Yeah, he didn't make any money.
I was kind.
He didn't make any money on that trip, and and the boat is perfect. The biggest problem he has is getting ballyhoo and bait. There's no bait source on the island. You gotta bring the bait in, and then the Galapagos Islands go nuts about anything that.
Right. Yeah, it's really very regulated there, right?
Oh God,
you can't step on a bug in the Galapagos without violating some law.
I mean, how much of that is overreach and how much is that protecting it, right?
Once again, it's a World Heritage Site, UNESCO site. It is a treasure. So, it's got to be preserved.
It's tough to argue with it.
And, the rules are the rules,
Because you wonder,
the problem is you could bring in, let's say, 1 case of bait. That's 144 baits. It's 12 dozen. That's, usually 12 packages of 12.
Okay.
So that's, you're going to run through that in a week, and it's difficult to, you got to ship a Yeti with dry ice. You're only allowed 10 pounds of dry ice. So it's got to go Miami, Guayaquil, Galapagos. In, the 2-day fashion, the kind of the quick hit.
Yeah.
And then, where are you going to store it? Thank you. Where are you going to store it when you get there is another problem. I don't know what the freezer situation is out there, whether you can get a freezer out there. It's not an easy place to get stuff. And, it's a third world kind of under the table sort of a...
Sure.
Banana
Republic kind of situation.
Right. If you were to ship a Yeti cooler down there, let's say 170 quart Yeti cooler with, 30 dozen or, 10 cases or 15 or 20 cases of bait, what's that going to cost you to get in? And if it gets stuck in customs, well, there goes your bait.
Well, it's also, they've got a really strict, import thing with taxes and stuff. That's one of the things that Choate got into a problem with. They had an air conditioner went out in the boat, and it came into customs, and it was going to cost them more than the air conditioner cost to get it out of the customs.
Yeah.
And they were fighting with his partner, and he were fighting over who's going to pay for it because it was...
And catching Euro baits, that's not even...
there's no place to catch them.
There's not, I mean, the sardines are there. I mean, you see 300 gannets dropping down and sea lions jumping and striped marlin cutting the water. There's a school of sardines there.
But that's open water bait balls.
Good luck getting that stringer of bait to the boat. There's really not much you can do other than bring these ballyhoo in, or and it's kind of.
They did well with lures, so we raised most of ours were on lures. I don't think we were trolling any ballyhoo. We had a spinning rod, heavy spinning rod rigged up with a ballyhoo for pitch bait when they gave up on the on the flies.
Right.
We'd had Jean Eastman with us, and she threw a pitch bait in, and she was our designated catcher.
Oh, that's right.
person.
That's right. Jean went on that trip with you. Yeah.
She was. We kept plugging her into the bait one so I could get some jumping pictures.
Right.
Yeah. But it was the trip is just.
It's great.
It's such an adventure. I can't recommend it too highly.
Sounds like an adventure.
And I come back, and Peter Miller wants to do a TV show. Rick Murphy wants to do a TV show. So I put Javier in touch with them, and they've got to get all kinds of permits from the government of the islands to do that. And they always want a chase boat. There aren't any chase boats.
No.
There's no chase.
It's all on the boat, and
you're
that's
just
that.
On the boat. That's it. It's all you're going to get. And so they're working that out, it's one of those magical places, and then the fact that it has striped marlin, arguably some of the best striped marlin in the world.
Mm-hmm. As long as you're on the right island.
You need to go to you go to San Cristobal. You don't go to any place else.
Right. Like you run up to Cabo and Mag Bay
and all
you're
that.
You're going to see more striped marlin. You'll probably see a lot more, but they're a lot smaller. Mm-hmm. And you're in Cabo and Cabo's pretty far out, but Mag Bay is what it is. And but this is the Galápagos, I mean, it's a volcano, a giant volcano. It's a quaint little town. The food's
It's got to
great.
feel like you're on another planet.
Pretty much.
Yeah. The sea lions are.
The sea lions are great.
The sea lions come in at night. They all come in on the beach. The beach is just full of, be 1,000 sea lions up on the beach, all barking and sleeping and
It's like spring break for sea lions.
It looks like Fort Lauderdale spring break.
Yeah.
But it's just they're just. You get used to it, you're stepping over a sea lion, we'll get in the boat now, and stuff like that. And you don't have, they've got a lot of gannets, but they don't have the bluefoot boobies much in San Cristobal. That's a different island. And they've got marine iguanas, and you've got the tortoises. And so we get there, usually we get in about 1 o'clock. So that afternoon we'll do our tourist thing, and we'll go look at the tortoises. This time we went and looked at the tortoises, and last time we went to some volcano with a lake in it where the frigate birds were diving in fresh water, which was sort of interesting and stuff.
That's kind of cool.
It was pretty cool, And then they come up and they're all wet and they're upside down, and they look like a bunch of meth head frigates. They were all like,
meth head
getting all the salt off.
These things are really weird looking birds.
All right, Dennis, that's a painting. Meth head frigate.
Need to start a self-help program.
Yeah, exactly.
In the Galapagos for the meth head
So
frigate.
we do that, and then we fish.
Are their teeth missing?
I'll send you the photos. I got some of the goofiest looking frigate bird photos. But it's a magical place.
It's just one of those places that if you love, adventure fishing, going places, and hey, I like some good food, and I got to tell you, man.
Do you, Rufus?
I was shocked at how good the food was there. It was fabulous. I mean, from the pizza, they had a pizza that's got a little marinara, some mozzarella, and then this creamy seafood, like Alfredo sauce put on top of it that slid under the oven and it bubbles. And I mean, oh my God, that's just like every bite is the ocean.
Yeah, Rufus ate 3 of them.
No, right. Yeah. Well, Javier gives me that, like the quarter pizza at the end and goes, "Oh, I can't take it home." And I'm like, oh God. So I gagged it down and then waddled back to the hotel. Thank God it was about
a sea lion?
About it was arguably, yeah. But,
Rufus is laying on the beach.
Yeah, right. They have the whole fish, this weird deep water fish that's just fantastic. It's presented beautifully.
Right.
The sushi was really good. The ceviche was really good. I don't recommend ordering a steak there, but I'm sure.
You're going to do the trip again soon, right?
We're going to do it next year,
Yeah. He's going, I think, the week before me, and then I'm going with a bunch of friends of mine.
Yeah.
We're going to go, and, this will be like their, bucket list trip.
Nice.
And, we're going to stay at the hotel. Oh, and the most important thing of all, the air conditioning in our hotel room was outstanding. With the invention of the mini split air conditioner, it's opened up.
You're literally on the equator, right?
You're at our where we are fishing is 0 point something.
Yeah.
So you're on the equator. It might be 0.1 point something south latitude when we get to the fish, but up there at the hotel, it's 000. You're right on the equator.
That's just cool, though.
So when we went years ago, he has a buddy come down from Michigan or Wisconsin?
Virginia? You mean Chris Lally?
Yeah, no. Your buddy 20 years ago.
Biggest state.
Right. So this guy rolls into town, and we go out the next, we go out our first day.
Rhode Island?
Pardon?
Right.
Nothing.
No, right. So the guy's sitting in the fighting chair, and he's got his shirt undone, and he's turning a color of red that is I've never seen before. And I go, look, sir, it's none of my business, but you might want to consider maybe buttoning your shirt up and maybe going inside.
Yeah.
I'm good there, son. Yeah, okay. Next day he left.
Really?
He was so burnt he couldn't move.
And he had a well-starched shirt on, and you just can't come and go out of the Galápagos. He goes, I got enough cash to get me out of here. And I'm like, hey, knock yourself out, buddy.
It still took him a couple of days. I talked to him later, and it took him a couple of days to get out. But he just, he's from Detroit.
Yeah, you don't realize it.
They have like 3 hours of sun a year up there.
Dude, my first time I went to Costa Rica, I didn't realize it. I was like, yeah, cool, I'm in Costa Rica. And I freaking walk right onto the sand with no flip-flops on.
Whoa!
I felt that for the next 3 days. I was like, the bottom of my feet were burnt.
There
was no one around to warn me not to do that.
Even we warned him. No, I'm good. This is fine. I got suntan lotion.
Yeah, right. Oh, so you're cooking even more.
Poor Dick. He didn't miss anything because the trip was
right.
terrible.
The trip was hell. Yeah, right. Yeah.
That's a soundbite.
Yeah.
Poor Dick. So listen, you guys. All right. Let me just reel this in a little bit. Just a little bit. All right. Just offer a little bit of perspective here. All right. You guys are phenomenal. One would say legends. I would say legends. Allow me to say that. Both of you guys. Seriously. So this is highly entertaining for me. Listening to you guys go on like this. But I want to bring up one serious thing, right? Because we only have so much time here. I can sit there and talk to you guys forever. We talked about the Galápagos. We talked about the way they protect the Galápagos.
Right.
And I think you guys can probably read between the lines, see where I'm going with this, okay? Is there any of that should be brought to Florida, and what's overreach and what's not? Right, because you guys have both been on the forefront, the front lines of conservation. So if we in this show we talk about conservation on every single episode we have here, right? And it's really a big deal. Being a native Floridian, native South Floridian, you know what I mean? Hold it near and dear to our hearts.
Right.
We talked before the show about some of the different conservation issues that we have going on around the state. What leadership is doing, some leadership is not doing. Influence of the Galápagos. I'm trying to tie that into Florida here and what can be done better and what is being done that's not necessary.
The Galápagos are a bunch of islands 600 miles off the coast of Ecuador. They think they're their own country.
Right.
So they've got all the regulations. Any regulation they want to put in, they put in.
Carte blanche.
And it's controlled because there's only a few little inhabited islands. They're in cities.
Right.
The biggest problem they've got a whole bunch of water that's designated park or whatever you want to call it.
200 miles.
Yeah, but they've got this Chinese commercial fishing fleet that anchors up or floats outside of the
thing.
They?
Yeah.
And
surprise.
As soon as it comes dark, they come into the waters, rape the fish, and go back out again.
Right. It's like every time I hear the term Chinese fleet, I think I hear the song dun 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 dun.
Right. Darth Vader. Yeah.
Whether it's Japanese or Chinese or something, I don't know, but.
Yeah, I mean, they got the squid boats and they got other boats, I'm sure. But the squid boats, it's a 300-foot boat with about 80 or 100, rods that just come off the side of the boat and drop down. Mm-hmm. And it's got, basically like 100 sabiki squid jigs on each rod. And when it comes up, when it hits the pulley, the jig goes like that and flips the squid into the boat. Mm-hmm. And it's as many squid as they can catch, and it's tons in a night. It's not just, 10,000 pounds. It's 50,000 pounds or 100,000 pounds. And they're just there every night. The tunas, you name it, they're catching it. So they have a particular thing in their corner. They're 600 miles out, and they still get hammered by, foreign interest. We have arguably one of the biggest cans of worms that's ever been created with our Lake Okeechobee system and the Everglades agricultural area and all that sort of stuff, south of the lake with sugar and, regular farming. Let's face it. Let's just call sugar what it is. It's the other white powder.
Right.
It's in every single thing we eat. It's in every single thing you drink almost. I mean, it's everywhere. It's in every white box. It's in every cereal box. It's in every can. It's in just about everything we eat. And it's all, to keep us obese and heart disease, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
Their lobby power is huge.
We've talked about this before. You're very familiar with the Fungial family. You went to school with all of them.
I don't even...
But it's not even that necessarily. There's this big industry tied to it.
This big giant industry. Then you throw the whole... big pharma into the program. Let's keep everybody sick, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So it's, you're fighting City Hall big time. And you're fighting Gotham City, it's DC, it's Tallahassee. Their lobby power is incredible. It's all over the place.
And you've been on the Hill talking.
I've been to Tallahassee 3 times to speak before Senate subcommittees, and I've been up there with Captains for Clean Water to get SB 28020, whatever, that last bill that DeSantis vetoed. Thank God,
Right.
Because that would have given the Department of Agriculture free reign over everything, which is Wilton Simpson, who is he ran unopposed for the Department of Agriculture, and he'll be the next governor. I don't see him, really being challenged.
You don't think so?
Somebody will come out of the woodwork, but he's got all the firepower. Depending on where we are politically in the nation, it'll depend on who gets in.
So you think once Ronnie's gone, it's going to switch over?
I think once Ronnie's gone, they're going to go full tilt,
They're just waiting and biding their time.
Yeah, they got all the time in the world, and so once the Department of Agriculture, if they were to get control of the allocation of land and money to buy what lands, then you're kind of opening up a can of worms. But I live on the St. Lucie River, and when we get discharges, it smells like just garbage. And
right.
The water turns black. In the Indian River, we've lost all the grass. We have lost the Indian River is 2,150 square miles from the Stewart Crossroads to Scottsmore or Titusville or whatever you want to call the top of it. That's as big as the state of Delaware or Rhode Island, and we have lost every blade of grass. Just when it starts coming back, they discharge, or we get a storm, or we get something,
right.
And, all hell breaks loose, and all the grass that was just starting to show is now gone again. So eventually the grass isn't going to come back.
Oh my God!
Breaking my heart. Hey, dude, when I first moved up there in '83, you could wade out. The grass was this tall, and it was just this enchanted forest of life with mullet and pinfish and shrimp and crabs and trout and snook and jacks and tarpon and porpoise and manatees, and now it's just a barren wasteland. It's just like the moon. There's no grass, there's no structure,
right.
There's nothing.
The same thing sort of happens in Florida Bay.
Yeah.
Because I've got the last month's issue of the Bonefish Tarpon and Trust Journal. I've got a picture on it with a redfish, and that was taken in snakebite, and the redfish is being released over turtle grass. And that's like an amazing picture now, because there's no grass left in snakebite. It's all mud. It looks like this table. And back in the day, the water was clear. We used to run around back in the 70s. We used to run around in little john boats just looking for the schools of redfish. We'd see one, we'd sort of stop and pull down and get it. But it was all clean water. It was all grass. Now it's just all mud. Yeah. And the other thing they've got is Rufus's area has got the discharge from the fertilizers and the lake and everything else.
You got all the coup de grace
everything filters right in there. Right. But down in Miami, they did some tests on the bonefish, and they found 16 different drugs in the bonefish.
So I'm very happy you brought that up, because I think at the symposium this year, at the Bonefish Tarpon and Trust Symposium this year, that was a really big topic of conversation.
Yeah, they found it in redfish, too. They started testing the redfish.
That's insane to me.
Yeah.
Insane that they're finding that much pharmaceuticals in the fish.
Yeah. And it's just from the outflow of whatever
wherever it comes from.
And somehow it's getting in the water and it's getting in the fish.
We should do that for snook up at home because we've lost all the trout. So now the snook bear the brunt of the pressure.
You know, like I mean, listen, Australia has 28 million people in it.
Hey, believe me, I'm ready.
And we have what? No. We have what? 23
or 4
million people
Florida.
in just the state of Florida alone.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
There's way too many people here.
Well, that's there's 300. Let's open the borders up and let more in. But that's beside. We're not going to go there. But the deal is yes, Australia. Everybody lives on the east coast of Australia. No one lives from Daintree or right north of
Australia's
Cairns.
the size of our Midwest.
Australia's almost as big as the lower 48.
Yeah. Well, you can fit it inside.
Yeah,
but it's close. Yeah.
But nobody lives from Cairns all the way to Cape York. There's maybe 500 people.
Yeah.
And then, from Cairns south, you've got Townsville, which is the center, but you got Cardwell and Tilly and all these little towns that there's no one there. Innisfail. Then south of that, you got Brisbane and, Gold Coast, which is pretty, then you got a big period of nothing, and then you get Sydney and on south. And then from, let's say, Brisbane all the way to the west coast, there's no one.
Mm-hmm.
There's nobody. I mean, I think Alice Springs is the only city in the middle of the country, and it's just all a bunch of red rock and Aboriginals and really, really hot and inhospitable.
Right.
And then, from Perth is a big center and the Margaret River south of Perth. And then you got nothing all the way to Exmouth.
Let's get off of this program.
Right,
this is doing anything.
And then you got Exmouth all the way to, Christ, up there in the Northern Territory and Darwin.
Summing it up, there's no people in Australia.
Right. There's nobody,
but my point is that's a huge country, and that's how many people are inside of our state.
And another thing is they really manage their stuff well. Like barramundi season closes.
Right.
They don't fish for ocean barramundi when they're out on the beaches spawning.
So this is my question overall.
Right.
Like you guys just come back from the Galápagos where it's just like heavily regulated.
Right.
And we come to Florida and it's like, well, we got issues. It's like, well, what here do you guys feel that could be done better? Like with looking at the way the Galápagos does it, looking at the way Australia does it now, like what are we doing right and what are we doing wrong? We just opened up the red snapper season for a longer period of time because that's been like a ruse.
In the Gulf.
Right.
Yeah.
The
Atlantic.
The red snapper is sort of a joke because you
that's
can't
it's
keep
been
them,
a ruse.
but you pull them up out of 200 feet of water, they get inflated, you release them, and they either get eaten by a shark or they die.
Right.
So and you can't say, I'm putting a bait down, no red snapper need apply.
Right.
Because you can't keep them. So that's sort of stupid.
But the Gulf, their season runs till July something.
Yeah, no, it's opened it up a lot. It's a
2-month season, yeah.
But we've talked a lot about the tarpon, which is one of my favorites, and one of my buddies was Bill Curtis. I've been fishing with Bill Curtis since 1973 or something, and he used to tell me that when we were in the 80s, he said there's 10% of the tarpon that I used to see in the late 60s and 70s, this mid 80s or so. Actually, I really didn't, probably the late 80s. I didn't really start tarpon fishing until the late 80s. And Bill was one of the first guys. I didn't even know there were tarpon in Miami, but he took me right out, Elf Elliott Key, Curtis Point, and there were lots of tarpon. But he said back in then, around the late 80s, he said there's 10% of the tarpon that were here in the 70s. Okay, well, we still had huge schools. He said back in the day, there'd be a pod of between 50 and 500 tarpon every quarter mile walking down the coast. And you'd cast it every school. You'd hook one up. The only reason you didn't get a bite was you were still fighting one from the last school that went by. Then we go up from the late 80s to around 2000 when Bill retired. And he's telling me then that now there's like 5% of the tarpon that he used to see. Well, I'm seeing between 1989 and 1999 or 2000, I'm seeing a lot less tarpon than I saw in the beginning, fewer and farther between. And then you fast forward up to 2020 or something like that, and now, from the times I've been out, it's 5% of the tarpon that I was seeing in the 80s, the late 80s. So it's probably like 1% of what was coming down here, back in the 70s and stuff. I mean, there aren't any tarpon.
Yeah, I mean, Bouncer's been on the show like a few times, and he talks about the way tarpon had dwindled like over the years.
Well, it's pressure.
So
it's pressure.
Environmental conditions.
There's a guide boat every quarter mile between Government Cut and Key West.
Yeah.
But they're fishing, so these fish are all 30, 40 years old, and they get hooked a couple of times. It's sort of figured out, but they're just not seeing the numbers. And Andy Mill and I have talked about this. He says, a whole bunch of them have just figured out that if they go down their normal path down through the flats, they got jet skis, they got boats running up and down, they got fishermen, they've got all kinds of water problems, lack of food. If we swim down in 60 to 100 feet of water, nothing bothers us.
Right.
We just go right off the reef, go right on down.
Yeah.
And
the path of least resistance.
There may be the still number of tarpons, but they're just not up on the flats where you can fish for them.
Right.
I know in East La Holbach, Mexico, which is a little island just off the north side of the Yucatan, my cousin goes down and he catches 140-pound fish in 200 feet of water. They're up on the surface, and he's, they're rolling, and he throws a fly in and hooks one, and it jumps, and they're in 200 feet.
The reason, part of the thing with the bouncer thing is, he said one of the number one reasons why he retired when he did is he was tired of losing tarpon to sharks.
Yeah. I don't blame him.
That's another thing. I just got back from Key West. I spent a week fishing with Trossett and a friend of mine. I was just taking pictures, but they were catching tarpon. And I've been fishing Key West Harbor, for tarpon since 1972. Mm-hmm. And or 71 actually, and I've never really seen tarpon get killed by sharks in the harbor. This last week, I watched a dozen tarpon get killed by sharks.
This week,
just last week. I mean, we lost 5 or 6 on our boat, and I could see other boats, and they're fighting the fish, and all of a sudden the water explodes, and you got the bull sharks are attacking it and stuff.
Yeah,
and they're just. I was amazed at how many sharks were in the harbor eating the tarpon.
It's an easy food source, like we were discussing earlier. It's a conservation issue, yada, yada, yada. Here comes a boat. The sharks are smart. Yeah,
but this is the harbor, and there were thousands of tarpon in the harbor.
Yeah.
I mean, they thought there was going to be a worm hatch. It didn't go off, but all the tarpon were in thinking it was going to go off, looking around.
It didn't go off?
No, from what I heard, I was talking to Russ Kleppinger, and he said it didn't go off the way they thought it was. It was supposed to go, he said it's going to, one of these 2 nights. Well, the first night it didn't go off. Second night the wind came up, and that'll screw it up if the wind is blowing. So, any rate, but the tarpon were all there, just schools, acres of them. And they weren't very big, but the shark attacks on them were like nothing I've ever seen before.
Can you talk a little bit about your background with the golden fly? I want to get into
that.
Yeah,
I was late for a meeting, and they made me president. 14 years later.
14 years later.
I quit. And
I don't know, I mean, it was a pretty reputable thing.
It is now, yeah. And it was Billy Pate and the Sherman brothers started that tournament because, they were getting older. They were having trouble competing with the young guys, the young studs. Glenn Flutie and a bunch of those guys. And it was 5 days tournament is rough when you're in your 70s and stuff. So a bunch of them got together and they formed the Golden Fly to compete with the Gold Cup. Mm-hmm. And it was like the gentleman's club. It was only 3 days. It was like a clam bake with fishing rods. It was just no pressure, no really cutthroat stuff. And it went along for a couple of years, and then they tried to get bigger, and it just didn't. Nobody was, the Shermans were inviting all their buddies to fish it, but they never were paying their entry fees. Mm-hmm. So, and they had all this, they added a Chica one, all this stuff. And finally, when I got nominated as president, I looked at it, and the thing was about $10,000 in debt.
Oh, really?
And there were like 3 people wanted to fish it.
Oh.
It was like, oh, great. So, we had to literally build it up from scratch from then on, and it developed up to being, one of the top 3.
Yeah.
The Golden Fly, the Hawley, and the Gold Cup are the 3 big,
the Grand Slam.
Gucci.
So that's why I wanted to bring it up, just to let the audience know that, the reason that the Golden Fly is, big reason that the Golden Fly is
what it is today.
Is because of you.
Yeah, because of me. Because I always was more concerned about the guy that comes in from Kansas and fishes, 3 or 4 days for practice, and then fishes the Golden Fly and catches 1 fish. I wanted to make sure he had a good time.
Yeah.
And so I didn't give a crap about Andy Mill, who was winning the thing all the time. They were winning. We were winning a prize. We were having a good time. I'm winning the poor schmuck that came down here and didn't catch anything. So I wanted everybody to be social, everybody to have fun. And I got a lot of bling for them, all kinds of free stuff, and would put everybody's shirts and everything. And everybody had a great time. It really got to be a very social and if we used 20-pound tippets, we just wanted them we wanted people to catch fish.
Right.
Yeah. Of course, when I got out, then Steve Ward took it over, and all the Gold Cup guys went in. They made it a mini Gold Cup, so now they're 15-pound tippet, and we're measuring length and girth, and and we're doing it and stuff. But it's it's still a very prestigious tournament. It's only 3 days, and it's a lot of fun. When I was running, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's really. Listen, I mean, the bottom line is, when you talk about tarpon and you talk about the diminishing population, reasons why, and everything like that, this is good perspective to have from you guys, to talk about.
Any
fishery, really. Your guys' knowledge of fisheries is just really
like
so
he
broad.
said, there's a guide every quarter mile.
Yeah.
And the pressure that these fish feel, like at home, we have no trout, we have no redfish anymore, really. So all the pressure's on the snook.
Mm-hmm.
And arguably, you can go buy live bait. You've got an electric motor that'll hold you in one spot. You've got power poles that'll stop you. And the fact you can buy live bait. So everybody can buy the live bait. We used to have to go catch it and meet our people or get our people and go catch it and so forth. And the convenience of buying live bait turns everybody into a guide.
Yeah.
Right.
And it puts added pressure because now you got all the people who weren't really fishermen, good fishermen, they'd go throw plastic or they'd try this. Now they're all posting up with live bait, plus the guides. And, if you want to be successful at it, you got to be there at 5:30 in the morning to get your bait. You got to have your people there, and you got to be the first people on those first 4 or 6 docks or whatever your points are. However your seawalls, however you want to call it, wherever the fish are patterning.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it, And if you're not there at that early first light, someone's going to beat you to it. So the competition has gotten insane. Now we're coming into the closed snook season where, like I said, in Australia, when barramundi season closes, I think it's like December 1st because it's their summer.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes till February 1st. It's the same 3 months that they close it. Nobody fishes for them. And if you're on a rock ledge or a rock wall or something and you're chucking big Z-Man plugs because that's what they fish for, they really only artificial fish there for the most part. You're barramundi fishing, and someone's going to shame you. They're going to pull right up to you and shame you into leaving. Here, that's, the grip and grin, the best, and I'm guilty of it. I did it 30 years ago, 20 years ago, where we slammed them and caught 40, 50, 60 fish in a day, and it was great, Now there's so many guides, and the fisheries become so depleted because every time you throw a live bait into a school of snook and something eats it and you get tight, the whole school scatters. So now you're disrupting their spawn momentum, and it becomes a big issue. So in the last snook meeting that was up there, Cody Rubner was talking about it, saying, we need to, police ourselves. I threw this out on Facebook 10 years ago, and man, I got eviscerated. People just said, we ain't ever going to give up our summer snook fishery. Right. Well, the summer snook fishery is now gone.
Mm-hmm.
What used to be schools.
And you're not going to have to give it up. It's going to give up on you.
300 at the jetties are no more. Those schools are gone. The Flapgate and Stewart used to have, 100 fish, 150 fish gone. You might see 10, and you get guides who will post up there all day long and pound them until they get 2 or 3 or 4 fish, but meanwhile, they're just, they're kind of cutting their own wrist, doing it. And
yeah.
You go out to the shark barge, there's a couple hundred snook in 30 feet of water. I've caught snook at the Halsey wreck, 70 feet of water. I've caught them at the pipe barge, 60 feet of water. So the snook are leaving due to water quality, pressure, whatever the synopsis is, they're getting out of the river. And the populations might still be strong, but not in the river.
Right.
And there's a boat on every single dock. So, I mean, God bless them. The poor snooker, they're screwed, just like the tarpon. There's a guide every quarter mile,
When I got to Key West in 1971, the Navy, there were like two light tackle guides, Bob Montgomery and a guy named Lefty Regan.
Montgomery.
And they would go out to these wrecks, looking back, and the Bazilka and the Sturdivant and stuff. And this was like, like the golden, fleece of fishing.
Right,
you get
right.
one of these wrecks, and there was A.M. Tyler and Jim Lopez and stuff, or a few guys from Miami that knew how to get to them. But there was no LORAN back then. No LORAN, there was no GPS, there was no nothing. You had to run. We all got like $1,500 compasses for the boat because the compass had to be right on.
Mm-hmm.
So we would run from the last buoy in Northwest Channel to Smith Shoal, and we'd time it on a stopwatch. And we'd do it at a specific RPM, 4,000 RPM, and we'd time it, point. Then we multiply that by 3.14 and get that. And then we'd take off from Smith Shoal and run 004 degrees on a calibrated compass for whatever that time was. And we'd throw a buoy and start looking for the wreck. That kept the riffraff off the water.
And like RT said, he said, sometimes you'd come down off a plane and you'd start looking, and then you'd look over and you'd see 100 permit tails and fins sticking out, or you'd see 40 cobia swimming
around right up in your prop wash.
And I can only imagine back then how wonderful that must have been. And talk about a sense of adventure. Let's, look at our watch, look at our friggin' compass, and let's go out into the great unknown.
Yeah.
Can you imagine the guys up off Gloucester and Montauk and doing the same thing,
Oh, geez. I mean, listen, right now with the way technology is involved in really every aspect of fishing and just diving or whatever you want to, I mean, look at the
sonar side
for
scan.
Crying, what I mean?
Side scan for docks and
sonars and drones.
All the electronics. I remember when LORAN C first came out, we'd have to go out and find the wrecks on our old skill, and then we'd mark the numbers.
Right.
Yeah.
And some magazine guys wanted me to say, okay, let's go get all the numbers and we'll publish them. And the magazine said, are you out of your minds?
Yeah.
We're not going to publish any of this stuff.
Right.
But one by one, the guys would catch us on the wrecks.
Yeah.
Right.
And there was a couple of guys that were just meat fishermen. And they would catch Trossett or Ralph Delf or me or A.M. Tyler to catch somebody on one of these little secret wrecks we had. And they'd go back to it every day with 50-pound rods and kill every cobia on the wreck.
Right.
Now you have a trouble finding a legal cobia.
Right.
Yeah.
And back in my day in the 80s, 60, 70-pound cobia were not rare at all.
Right.
I mean,
your 67-pound cobia on 8-pound tippet will probably stand forever.
Yes.
So I got a good story about
record?
this.
But I caught this with Trossett.
Tell me about that record. Tell me about that. I want to hear about the records.
We were out west of the Marquesas in the quicksands in a wreck called the Artemis or something or another. And there were 3 cobia, and one of them was huge. And at that time, I think the world record for cobia was on 8-pound tippet was 40 pounds or something like that. But anyway, I got into this time when I was going to go, all right, I'm going to fish 8-pound tippet because nobody's caught anything on 8-pound tippet. I was the first one to catch a white marlin on an 8-pound tippet. And that record held up for 20 years or something like that. And so I'm out there with a fly rod with an 8-pound tippet, and I hook up this cobia. And it's got an 8-pound tippet. The fish was 67.5 pounds.
Yeah.
It took me 2 hours to get it in. We gaff it, throw it in the boat, and the fly falls out of its mouth. Yeah. So you got to keep pressure on them.
Yeah.
Right.
But anyway, that was in 1985. And
wow.
And that's still a record today.
Yep.
Wow.
And it will never be beaten because there's not a lot of 60, 70-pound cobia around.
Right.
And no one's stupid
And
enough
going
to
to fly.
Nobody's throwing a fly at it.
Yeah.
And it ain't going to have an 8-pound tippet if they do. So that's going to be up there.
Wow.
And,
nice.
I
like it.
That was good.
I like it.
Yep.
I got to ask you, I want to ask you something. I don't ask everybody this, but I do ask a lot of guys this. I'm really curious about both of you guys. Everyone has the one that got away. Everyone's got one. I don't care who you are. Everyone's got the one that got away. What's your one that got away?
Homosassa. First day I ever fished there with Captain Mike Hewlett. And, I had fished in the Keys a couple of years, caught some big tarpon, 100-pounders. It was nothing giant. And Mike was like, all right, I think you're ready to go to Homosassa. You can cast 70, 80 feet and, you're pretty good at it and you can pull on a fish good. So let's go. It's, going to cost $100 more a day. Oh, so now we're at $3.25,
Right.
Those are the days. Because that was the hotel room and food and all the stuff that he would have to deal with. And so anyway, we went up there and we came out of the Weeki Wachee River Bayport boat ramp and we went out and we fished some of these deeper water spots, and I jump a fish and the tide's moving and starting to drop, and he goes, all right, let's run up to the flat. So we ran up to what's called the Lean and Steak, Mutt and Jeff or Guido's Rock, that area. We're pulling along, and all of a sudden Mike goes, oh my God. And I look up and I'm bang, there it is. I mean, I can see this thing coming. It's like a literal submarine. I'm like, holy shit. And I look at the rod and I go, well, here it goes, and he goes, so 2 feet to the right of it because the tide's falling, and 2 feet in front of it, and just snake that fly right in front of it. And I did that, and this thing garbaged it. It had 4 fish following it that were all over 100 pounds, and this thing was just that much bigger. And she ate it. I set the hook, I got tight and, cleared the line, and she rolled out here and jumped. She jumped that far out of the water. That was to the set of pecks, the first set of ventral fins, And so she did that 3 times. Now, I had been over here using my Billy Pate anti-reverse reel, which is fine, and that's all I'd ever used was an anti-reverse reel. And Mike decides you can't catch shit with this, so here, use my John Emery. It's a direct drive reel, and I'm just not used to the concept. Don't touch the reel. And I had my hand on the reel, and the fish turned. It jumped up inshore, then jumped over here, then started to make her way towards the Gulf, jumped one more time, and started to go.
Right.
And I had my hand on the reel, and somewhere in that period of me hooking it and it getting off, Mike said, "Oh God, please don't lose this one. This is the fish that this is it. This is a 200-pound tarpon or bigger. I don't know how much bigger, but well, she's still swimming out there." But that is, and I'll never forget it because I've caught 186.5-pound tarpon, and I've probably had one other fish on that was comparable to that one, but not as big. And, if you fish there enough, you're going to have it. I just got it the first day of the first morning I was there and just wasn't savvy enough to really understand how to properly fight that fish.
I think to this day, this is why your love for Homosassa just still.
Yeah, but I canceled my year because last year sucked so bad. The first year I went back, I fished there for 10 years. Then I took 25 years off because the fishing got so crappy. Nestle's pulling 1 billion gallons of water out of the springs a day, so there's not enough fresh water going out there. The blue crabs have trickled. There's nothing like it used to be. These are what people think. This is what some of the biologists think and some of the guides and so forth. And the watercolor's a little different. And, there's, and the extenuating, the 100 boats that might show up there on any given day, or the 50, 60 boats or 30 boats that are all fishing a pretty small area. And the fish play pinball. They bounce off one boat, bounce off another boat, bounce off another boat, and turn and go straight west. And you can watch them. I mean, sometimes the school will come, you'll throw a fly, and the tarpon will sit up and go, yeah, I got one of them. I mean, it's, you could just tell. It's just they've been pounded, and they're skittish, and they're kind of shaking and moving, and and they don't eat with their tails, and people will throw at their tails, and that just makes them go faster. So they're just constantly getting aggravated. And so this year I told my buddy, I said, look, I'm going to have to bag it. I'm going to,
take it off.
Take a year off. Let me know how you do. If it blows up, I'll it's only 4 hours away. What do you know? I've got a boat. I'll drag a friend over there. I'll pull you fish for fish.
I'll go with you.
You might be up there a while, though.
Yeah.
Pat, what's your one that got away?
Yeah, I got so many that got away. I sort of blocked them all out, and it's hard to figure out what's. I don't have any.
You don't have one signature
fish.
one.
I don't have one signature. I got a couple of fish that I really liked that Well, we were back in 1980. I was down with Ron Hamlin. Ron Hamlin and I were good friends, and I was trying to catch the late 70s. I was trying to catch a sailfish on fly in Florida, which doesn't happen very often. And we'd go up to Stewart and we'd troll, and we raised a few and tried to tease them up. But the Atlantics don't tease well. You get one little quick shot, especially here. At Isla Mujeres, they're stupider, but these guys are real smart. So Ronnie and Hamlin and I were talking at a Rod and Reel Club meeting, and he said, this year we're going to catch that one on fly. He says, you just be on standby because I'm going to call you, and you got to get there. I'm going to call you tonight. You got to be up there the next morning. I said, okay, got a deal. So I got a call on February 3rd. He said, get your butt up here. They're balling the bait. Because one boat caught 70 fish or something today. Yeah. So I go running up there, and Mark Sawson was with me. Met me there. He was on the boat. And Ronnie and, a couple of women, or I don't know who the hell it was. But anyway, so we're fly fishing. And it's 1:30 in the afternoon. We haven't seen a fish. Nothing. And finally we saw some surfing through the waves, and I threw a spinning rod at it with a jig on it because I was fishing the Met tournament that year. Okay. And you had all these 10-pound spin categories and fly and plug. So I threw a jig with a 10-pound spinning rod and caught a sailfish, which is a big deal for the Met because not many sailfish on artificial. So now we're putzing around. And finally, Ronnie says, all right, buckle up. We're running. Somebody called him and said there's some bait balls. So we run over, we get a bait ball, and there's about 5 boats, and they're all in a circle with their sterns in towards this bait ball with the sailfish going through it. And I hooked 4 sailfish on fly, free casting into the bait ball. Wow. And lost every one of them.
Wow.
And the last one, I got the good hook up, and it ran off and got the line and the props of one of the boats across from it. Oh, God. And it's like, and they're all watching me like this idiot's throwing a fly in the middle of the thing. Everybody's a free line and live baits to them. So I get one more time, and I figured out that what you do is you cast the fly out, twitch it twice, and just let it sit. And they think it's a hurt bait, and they just come up and poof, eat it. And that's what it did. I hooked it up, and it started jumping right behind the boat. Every boat that was watching me just gunned their engines and moved out and gave me room.
Wow, that's really?
Yeah, it was really
pretty cool.
It was pretty cool. And
Back
I caught
in the
that
days
fish.
Of etiquette.
Yeah, it was. Well, it took them 5 fish to figure that out, so it wasn't that big a deal. But I got that. It was 55.5 pounds on a 12-pound tippet back in the Met. Still a Met record, if there is such a thing. It's still a Florida state record. And that was really February 4th, 1980.
Nice.
Wow. And so that was a big thing. A lot of work went into that fish. Oh, you caught one. I just went out with Rufus, and we caught a sailfish on fly. Right. No, it doesn't. It don't work the way. The same thing with the white marlin. Again, Ronnie Hamlin, and Ronnie. I was the one that taught Ronnie how to fly fish. Yeah. And he became one of the gurus of fly because he was perfecting it. But I was the one that got him into the teasing, gave him his first fly rod outfit and stuff like that. And
back then there was no manual.
There wasn't.
It was
there was nothing. It was nothing.
Right.
I was the first one to use the shooting heads.
Yeah.
Because we were doing it in the 70s in Cozumel, and we'd hook up an Atlantic sailfish. Back then it was 12-pound tippet only, floating fly lines. You'd hook a sailfish up there so fast, they would run, and they would take a whole floating 12-weight fly line. They would pop the tippet just with the belly and the line for running, and you couldn't land them. So I was talking to Bob Stearns and stuff, and we were going, you got to do this. So I came up with a 30-foot shooting head, and which wouldn't have the line drag. And then I put about 150 feet of that orange strand mono behind it because the captains weren't used to fly fishing. You'd hook up, they'd throw the boat in reverse, and they'd suck the line into the props. I mean, they didn't know what they were doing.
1-to-1 retrieve doesn't help.
Yeah, you're a little Seamaster. You're getting an inch, about an inch and a half of line every time you're turning. So anyway, that was tough. But we went down to Venezuela. To La Guera banks. Yep. And I was fishing 8-pound tippet because no one had ever caught a white marlin on an 8-pound tippet. And so
Venezuela, huh?
Yeah. And back in the day when you go back there and get out alive.
We had Eric Leach on the last episode, and he was talking about Venezuela too.
It was the best saltwater bill fishery, period. And then Chavez happened.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I missed it. I thought I had time.
Oh, we were trolling tease baits, just little soft heads and stuff. We had an 800-pound marlin come up on a little
elephants eat
little
peanuts,
teaser or something or another about that big. And so anyway, so I hooked, I think 11 marlin before I landed one.
Wow.
So like the 10th one, I fought for an hour and a half, and I got it right up next to the boat. And the mate, it was Flash. The Flash is
Flash.
And he gaffed it, and it got under the boat, and it broke off. And this was like after an hour and a half. And this is after I'd lost like 9. Now I got
Ross
it.
Clark,
and it's on the
Flash,
Ross Clark, yep. And so all right. So here we go again. And I'm about giving up now. So we get back in, make another cast. Again, this is bait ball fishing. Make another cast, hook up, and it's a big one. And the fish starts tail walking right around behind the boat. Just doing circles, just tail walking. And it comes right around the boat. Flash leans out and gaffs it.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, it's tail walking?
Yeah, it's tail walking by.
Oh, my God.
It was like a 5-minute fight, and he's going by and he gaffs it and throws it in the boat. I said, well, I'm just adding the hour and a half I fought the one before that you screwed up and lost for me to this one.
Right.
So we finally got it. But that was 72.5 pounds. And that held up. That was an 8-pound tippet. That held up for a long time.
That held up till Morocco.
Yeah, Morocco. He caught.
Yeah,
Fuad caught 3 swordfish on fly before he beat my white marlin record.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, Fuad's got the records for swordfish. This
That's
guy,
not the Gladius.
Right.
So I designed
Fuad
something for them years ago.
Fuad Sayahui. Okay, Deborah Maddox, Jerry Dunaway, Deborah Dunaway. She had a Royal Billfish Slam of current world records.
Right.
Now, for a woman on conventional tackle,
sure,
it's one of the greatest achievements ever. Fuad has just about everything current world records. He's got swordfish, I think Pacific blue marlin, striped marlin, Atlantic sailfish, white marlin. I think
he's got them all like you do. He's got everything.
Yeah, well,
Except he's got the swordfish.
Shit, he had the Royal Billfish Slam on fly way before I did, I still don't. I need to catch a sword.
You need the sword still.
Yeah, but that's just another story that I don't want to get into.
Well, we already talked about that on your last.
That's
episode.
That's an anthill in my crotch.
I know. That's your one. That's your one that got away, right? Pretty much.
BB's in the ass, the anthills in the crotch.
BB's in the ass, and anthills in the crotch. You got it.
Okay. I know one more story.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm out with Rick Murphy and Joe Rodriguez years ago. We're flats fishing.
God bless him.
We were looking for...
God rest his soul.
We were looking for tarpon. Whose soul?
Joe Rodriguez.
Oh, I didn't even know he died.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, last year.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't even know that.
No, it's okay. Sorry.
Anyway, so we're out. We're looking for tarpon. There aren't any tarpon. And we look for redfish, and redfish are boring. So, so let's go catch some sharks. So we go over to... Sandy Key Basin or someplace and we're got a bunch of ladyfish and we're drifting for sharks. And we caught a couple of black tips and then it slowed down. Murphy's asleep and JoJo's doing something and I'm sitting there pretending I'm interested. And all of a sudden this big thing pops up in the back and it comes in and I go, oh shit, this is like 200 pounds. This is too much work. Joe says, go ahead and hook it. I'll fight it if you get bored. So okay, so we get in. The fish comes right up. I throw the fly at it. It swims right past the fly, right under the boat, and it's a tiger shark.
Ugh.
And so it turns around, comes back, eats the fly, and and we're now fighting a 200-pound tiger shark.
Right.
And I never even seen a tiger shark before, that size before. And
Murphy, now you've seen plenty of them.
Yeah, now I have.
More.
But this is back in 1980 or something like that, or I don't know, a long time ago. So. We get it up, and I get it right up next to the boat. Now, we don't have a gaff. We're in a Hughes bonefish, and we've got no gaff. And we got the shark, and Murphy's screaming, this is a world record, this is a world record, this is a world record. So we're trying to get it in. We're trying to tail rope it. We're trying to pull it over. And it's a
tiger shark.
It's a tiger shark, and we're all crazy. And we got no gaff. We're trying to lasso it. It breaks off. And it swims off. And I'm going, God, that was such fun. I get tiger shark and right next to the boat. This going, Murphy's going, Joe, sit, watch it. And Joe says, I got it. And Murphy's going, okay, give me the leaders. We got to tie the leader. It's gone. It's tying a leader. So Murphy's there. His hands are shaking. He's tying another IGFA leader. Get another fly on it. Joe's watching the fish. He says, Joe, you got it. He said, went up there to stop. So we go all the way up, about where we saw it, stop, throw the baits back over again, start drifting. 5 minutes later, up pops the shark again. come right back in, throw the fly, eats the fly, and now we're back in the same
Really?
Now we're back in the same stupid procedure again. How are we going to do it? We finally get a rope on its tail.
Wow.
And drag it into the boat, lash it to the polling platform because it's trying to kill all of us. And we're going, nuts. Murphy's saying, the world record is like 43 pounds. This is like 200. And we pull it, sure enough, in its mouth, it's got my other fly.
Wow.
And on the other fly, the shock tip, it was an inch too long. So it wouldn't have worked.
It wouldn't have mattered.
It wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah.
But that stupid.
So Murphy's got the record for that shark?
No, well, it's my record.
It's your record.
My record.
Oh, so you were on the
I was on the rock. Yeah,
right.
Murphy was.
All right. I thought you
was
said
the captain.
Murphy threw the
No, Murphy
second
was the
fly.
captain, but
Murphy tied the leader.
So you threw both flies.
I threw both flies.
Nice.
Yeah, I did the whole thing, and I was having a great time. But
That's
it was
so cool.
Yeah, that is cool.
Yeah.
That held up for a long time too, but it was that was a very memorable fish.
Yeah,
right.
Especially
that's
getting it in with no gaff. So people go sharping. I caught all these fish on shark.
Right, exactly.
To use a gaff?
Yeah, right. So I just got to say something.
Yeah.
Are we getting ready to wrap it up?
Yeah, maybe in a few minutes.
All right.
Why? Well, we don't have to.
Pat, I've known you for
we're on no time limit
20-something
even though Yanni
years.
wants to go home.
Yeah.
But.
I met Pat. Pat called me. Pat called me when
we're
all
in no
going.
hurry. We don't have to
Right.
wrap it up. Just
So
for
Pat
the audience
called me.
listening,
So
don't
keep
turn
talking
this
about
off.
Right.
Don't
So
turn it off, audience.
I had known Pat. I had known of Pat for years because of the IGFA book and all this. Wow, this guy Pat for the White Marlin record, and that was the one that really intrigued me. So, in 2001 or so, I did this tournament in Brazil for the peacock bass, and Pat had seen the shirt that I did. So we're all going back down to Brazil, but he's going to a different lodge or something. So I think it was 2002, Pat's like, hey, man, my phone blows up. It's Pat Ford. I'm like, hey, Pat, how you doing? And he's like, can you bring one of those shirts? I'm going down to Brazil. So I met him in the airport and gave him one of the shirts, and then he went off.
That's where you guys met for the first time?
Yeah. In the airport. He was going with River Plate, right?
Yeah.
Right. And I went with the Rio Negro Lodge, and we did the second year of the tournament, and then I think
after that, River Plate was terrible, so I went to your group for the one afterwards.
But I just got to say, Pat, it's been 22 years that I've known you, and, you've enhanced my life incredibly, and you've been a really dear friend, and it's a pleasure to know you. My good man. You
guys are going to make me cry. This is a beautiful moment.
It's great. I mean, I told him this before, too, but,
it really is.
I have to pay him $20 every time he says that, so that's the problem.
Hey.
No, but he's been a dear friend. We've had a lot of, we've been
all
to the Seychelles,
over.
Galapagos, Africa.
We've been
Brazil,
all over.
Panama. We've had the pleasure of fishing together a lot, and I just wish we got to do that Russia trip.
Yeah, we had it all set up to go for the Atlantic salmon with Matt Harris to Yokonga Lodge or someplace.
Screw that now.
Do you know who Matt Harris is?
No.
You need to look at his stuff on Instagram. He's got some books out. He's got a book out.
Yeah, he's the British version.
The British guy you're talking
about. British version of me.
Yeah.
He does the same thing, goes around and travels and takes photographs and writes articles.
He's
a professional photographer.
Oh, my God.
Funny guy. Nice guy.
He's caught everything under the sun on fly.
But he loves Atlantic salmon. He had this whole trip to Russia set up for us, and then I guess it was 21 or something, and we thought COVID was over, but it wasn't.
No, it's Biden. It was our boy.
You said the B word.
Yeah, he got elected, and that was the end of us going to Russia.
When they edit the show, like when you say it could beep when you say Biden.
Right, good.
So
please.
Are you serious?
No.
I was about to say I quit.
No, but that was it. I got the email from Henry Mountain, and Henry said, sorry, the trip's canceled. They're doing away with that whole week. We're just come on, it's politically
we
motivated.
had a special deal because they were trying to open up a fall season. And Matt was telling me, he said, look, all the fish are in the river. They're just sort of colored up because they're in their spawning colors, but they're all there. Every fish that's come in the river since June is still in the river because they spawn in September. So we were going to go right before the spawn.
Yep.
And he says, there's 30, 40-pound fish in this river.
Right.
And we had it all set up, and I think COVID got us the first time.
Yeah.
And then we were going to roll it over, and then everything just went to hell in a handbasket.
Went to hell, yeah.
They sent us our money back, which was amazed me.
Really?
Yeah.
That's kind of nice.
Because this was really a strange place to get to. I don't know how you get to.
Yeah, we flew to Moscow, St. Petersburg, Murmansk.
I think we were sort of closest to Murmansk, and then we had to take a private plane out.
Wasn't the CCA selling one of those a trip like that before?
Not that I know of.
No, I thought they had a Russia trip on the list at one point. But anyway, listen, Carlene's probably going to laugh at me because a sentimental moment can't come across this table without me getting involved in it.
Are you going to cry?
I am.
Okay, let me get my video. Hold on. Go ahead.
No. I'm not going to cry. It's cool. No, I really just want to say thanks to both of you guys. Really, since we're on the topic, we talked before the show, right? About, I expressed my love for Pat before we came on. But no, it's an honor to have you on. I mean, as an artist, just creatively speaking, you're one of the most respected guys there is out there, especially in my mind. So the fact that you're here today is really special for me.
Thanks. It's a lot of fun. I enjoy. I enjoy talking.
This is the second time that we're meeting. You know what I mean? You're not the first, but it's really the first time we're actually having a full conversation. It's really kind of cool. And Rufus, I have to say, on so many levels, thank you for always supporting this studio.
Hey.
For always supporting our endeavors here. You really have from the very beginning. I can't even remember when we met. You know what I mean? But it's just like one of those organic relationships that just kind of happened, and it's just really, really been cool knowing you over the years.
It's my pleasure, and it's an honor knowing you. And you do a lot of good stuff. Your artwork speaks for itself, and you're punched into all the right, stuff and conservation and all of that is just so important, and to have a platform like you have to be able to get the word
this is really a good deal. You've done so much with this, just getting the word out, and even if it's a couple of old derelicts like us talking about it.
Listen, I do it all. I honestly, I hate to sound corny and cheesy about it, but I really do it out of love. I really do. I
we
really
all do.
truly just we all do, right?
There's no money in any of this.
Love this space. We just love this. You know what I mean? Love the people, and to me, that's why we named it Connected by Water. Because that's what it really made sense to us, that name. Hey, because that's what it really comes down to. We're all just connected by the water.
If you don't fish or hunt, I don't trust you and have nothing to talk to you about. So it's just real simple.
Yeah, you can leave the hunting out of it, too,
Well, I mean, hunting's at least a reverence for the nature and respect for the animals and conservation. So I'm good with it, You
can't release it after you put a bullet in it,
you can at least eat it,
Yeah, you can eat it,
You know where I'm coming with that one,
So you take a picture of it, it walks away, I mean, you still have the photograph.
Ducks Unlimited has done a lot for that. Turkeys, the National Turkey Federation, all of it has done huge amounts of, created awareness and conservation stuff and dictated policy and so forth to, further these species.
It's interesting you say that, with the art and taking a picture of it and everything like that, because I really do feel that way after I finish a piece. I really just feel like I actually caught a fish, or really just feel like you just achieved an adventure or something like that.
Yeah, you've had
That's
an
why I paint
week.
fish. Really, it's just good. It puts me in. Rather than going out and catch them, which we'll go out and hunt and catch them and fish and everything like that, but creating one on your own. There's a high that comes from that.
Same thing with the photographs. Yeah. I don't really need to catch another tarpon.
Right.
Certainly don't need to catch another 2-pound bonefish or a 3-pound redfish. I mean, I've done all of that for 50, 60 years down here now. And, I want to get the world's best photograph of them. So I just like to sit in the boat and, and with my camera and get through all the camaraderie and everything else and let the other guy catch the fish.
Yeah.
And
it's funny because I don't tournament fish anymore, right? Like you used to tournament. I'm like, my thrill on that is gone, right?
No, and that adds a lot of stress.
and now, and honestly, with the business, I don't really nearly fish as much as I used to anyway.
Well, you can't.
But now with my son and my daughter, you know what I mean?
We're going you'll start getting them out.
I'm going fishing Thursday with Bill Lepre.
Right? Oh, awesome!
Yeah, so we're going fishing with Bill on Thursday, and I'm kind of hoping to get my son's first clown knife. You know what I mean? Because it would be kind of cool.
Yeah.
But the last couple of times, I took my son out fishing over 3 times in the past couple of weeks. Bass lure fishing for a 9-year-old is kind of tough, especially this time of year. They're not really hitting a lure, you know what I mean, stuff like that. So I called Bill. I said, "Listen, this kid said something that really just sent a knife through my heart last time we went fishing." He goes, "Yeah, what was that?" He goes, "I'm bored," and I went, "No." I dialed Bill fast. I'm like, I don't care what we catch. We just got to get him catching something, because we'll go out, we'll go on his little Carolina skiff, and he'll get the shiners out, and we'll catch fish all day long. my son's love's going to come back for it. Right, I'm like, I got to repair that situation right off the bat. That's kind of like my mode on fishing right now. That's where I'm at with it.
Yeah, they don't want real big fish. They just want lots of them.
That's it.
This what happened with my son is that I took him fishing as a kid. We went offshore. We did this. We did that. He caught some stuff, snook and this and that, and he might have wound in a little dolphin or whatnot. And then one day I said, "You want to go fishing?" And he went, "No."
Yeah.
So I said, "All right, I'm just going to leave it." And there was a several-year period, probably 2.5 or 3 years, where I'm going to go fishing. No, I'm good, Dad. I'm going to go do something with my buddies. I'm going to go, play basketball or whatever. And then one day I heard the words that I'll never forget. "Hey, Dad, will you teach me how to fly fish?"
Really?
I just vapor locked, man. And I went and I grabbed an 8-weight, took him out in the backyard, and I sat him down and I like this and gave him the rod. And I mean, he took it by the end, in an hour, he was throwing 50 feet. And he was 12, Yeah. 11 or 12. And then, I took him to Louisiana. He got redfish on. He tied his own fly, caught his first big, 25-pound redfish on his own fly. Then I took him to Australia. He caught black marlin, sailfish, golden trevally on fly, and barramundi, and cod. What the hell? Those proper estuary cods, like a little Goliath grouper, And he's been hooked. Now he lives in Costa Rica. He mates. He's spearfishing, shooting 130-pound yellowfins, wiring blue marlin.
At any point you back, listen, man, I named you Marlin. You're gonna catch fish.
Right. Please don't be a hairdresser.
Yeah, he turned out okay.
Yeah, he did. God. I'm proud of my boy. He's doing really good.
Yeah.
He bit off a foreign country and went down there and working with a good crew. 64 Viking. They're building a 70-foot Mark Willis. What a beautiful boat that's going to be. He believed in himself so much he bought a townhouse down there.
Yeah,
said, I'm good. I'll hang here for a while. And if it doesn't work out, I can rent it or sell it. And I said, God, man, that's just good thinking, son.
Yeah.
So
it's been so nice having you guys in here. So nice having you guys
to be here.
Anytime.
Yeah, seriously.
Yep.
I think, Nick, we need to name this episode Lords of the Flies.
Yeah, right.
I think that's been taken.
Has it been?
Yes.
Yeah,
Lords of the Flies?
That's Lord of the Flies.
I know they have Fly Lords.
That's Monty Burke's book, yeah.
Lords
of
the Flies. All right. Maybe it's been taken. Anyway, you guys
will
get my point.
With something.
You guys get my point.
Old farts talking about fishing will be the title.
White-haired.
Yeah.
The
gray beard.
I'm going to pull pull some beards out.
One more thing about the Galapagos trip is we're walking up and down the town because we'd go out from the hotel, we go to different restaurants every night.
Right.
And we're walking along. And first of all, there's a mural on the side of a building of Charles Darwin.
Right, hold on a second.
Have that. Yep.
Before you get that there, I think I know where you're going.
Okay.
Finish your story.
All right. It looks just like Rufus. I mean, just exactly like Rufus. You take his hat off, bald, big bushy beard. So Rufus has got his own mural down San Cristobal on the side of a building. And the second thing is he's walking around and all the little kids are staring at him. And then they'll point at him and they'll go, Papa Noel.
Yeah.
Papa Noel. And then he's yelling at the kids, leave me alone, I hate you, and stuff like that. You're not getting anything, you're not paying your mother.
Ho.
And they put the camera on me. That's the
Rufus.
mural right there.
That's Rufus.
That's Charles Darwin.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's it right there.
That's
and
Rufus.
that actually brings us, I think Carlene had a question all teed up from Bill Pino. Right, for you.
He was asking what you did down in the Galapagos to have your face on a mural on the wall.
Right,
What story goes behind that one? Inquiring minds would like to know.
I wish I knew. Well, I guess me and old Chuck, we kind of look the same. Charles Darwin.
Old Chucky Darwin.
Yeah.
Yep, that and the 47 kids that were following him around the entire trip.
No, I mean, so the little kids would go, Papa Noel.
Really?
And their eyes would get really big. And I'd turn around and
they'd point.
And I'd kind of give them a little, and they'd go, And they'd run off to their mom and dad, and their mom and dad would look at me and kind of wink and smile, and I'd go,
really?
give them a little thumbs
That's
up,
cool.
Just because, I mean, we all know
if you've got it,
sure.
you got it, flaunt it.
We all know how that story ends. You know?
Right.
Yeah, you become like 14 or these days 8. And there is no Santa Claus, that kind of deal. So,
well, I hope my kids don't listen to this episode.
I'll work with it, right? Well, you can bleep. You can bleep that one out.
Yeah, no, it's
but
all
no,
good.
it's And then the one kid, I said, I asked Javier, how do I tell him you got to be a good kid all year? And Javier told me in Spanish, and I turned around and said, and he went,
yeah.
And his parents are like, oh, thank you.
God knows what you said to him.
Yeah, right.
No, because Javier told me, and
I know.
it's all good.
God knows what he told you to say.
I will spare your family.
Yes.
Right. That's great.
Yeah, it's never a dull moment. I
Yeah.
can't recommend that trip too highly.
It's awesome.
That and the Fads trips down in
the Fad trips.
the Blue Marlin.
Yeah.
The guys from Casa Vieja Lodge, David Salazar's got the hooker down there now.
Yeah, he's got the hooker in Capos, and then Jake Jordan runs a great set of trips.
And
out.
Javier's got a boat doing that too.
Javier's
and let's not forget,
Javier's using Harry Gray's old boat, the Carib Sea. Yeah.
Okay.
and let's not forget about Mike Sheeter down there. He's got running the zone outfit down in
Well, that's in Guatemala.
Yeah,
I don't
That's
know.
it. Yeah, this is on the other
Fads,
coast.
yeah.
This is the
This
Fads
is
in Costa Rica.
Yeah.
But the
Bubba Carter goes out
I thought you
there.
were talking about
Yep.
like. Never mind.
No, we're talking
this
about
is the Fads.
Costa Rica Fads.
The Fads. This is, but we went down there and we each caught like a 300-pound blue marlin on a fly rod with IGFA tippets.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's not like you could have gaffed them and put them in a boat or something. But
No.
we get it. You got the leader on the tip, and you got the fish right next to the boat, and it's 300 pounds, and that's like the Super Bowl of fishing. There's nothing that I've caught that has been like those giant blue marlin.
It's absolutely fantastic, and once again, you come back to a 12-inch shock tippet and 18-inch class tippet, and it's all that far away from
all
the fish.
IGFA, and it's a 300-pound
from me to
fish.
those hats, and it's just a really.
So you got to pretty much hook them.
Well, it's all they're J hooks. We're fishing. We used to fish 2 8-0 gamakatsus, octopus hooks. Now we're down to 1, and the hookup ratio is the same.
Right.
I mean, you may lose 1 or 2 here, but for the most part, it's the same.
Yeah.
The last time I fished with Chris Sheeter, I had 7 on fly in one day, and we had 10 on bait in the same day. So that's 17 blue marlin in one day, with which 7 of them are on fly. And I did spend 2 hours on one of them.
Yeah.
And we still caught 17,
But they have an interesting
in one day.
They finally figured out how to catch these things.
Yeah.
They use no drag. It's like 1 pound of drag, just so it won't overrun.
Yep.
You hook them up and you just hang on. And the thing will run off 600 yards of line and jumping all over the place. And you don't touch it. You just hold on, let it go, do whatever it's doing. Then you sort of creep up on it, and you still keep it at 1 pound of drag or 1.5 pounds or something like that for a long time. And finally, Chris Sheeter, you can go to 3 pounds of drag now. I think it's 300-pound fish. 300 pounds of drag is like nothing. But it's all the direct drive reels. So
direct drive reels and a 500 grain shooting head.
Yeah.
So we're fishing such a light drag, and the boat's in reverse, and you're just kind of creeping line on the reel. That line starts to sink below the fish, and the fish stay up top. And I know some of the guys who are fishing like 4 and 6 and 8 pound conventional tackle would use a piece of cable about that long, 800-pound cable, into a haywire twisted 12-foot section of 15 or 18 wire, 19 wire, and that's the same thing as a 500 grain shooting head. It would sink below the fish and keep them on the surface. Because once they go down real far, they're going to break off on 4, 6, or 8.
Right.
And once they go down real far or get a really big giant belly in the line, they're going to break off on 20-pound tippet. But with that line staying like that below them, it keeps them up. It's just got to pull a little bit, just a little downward pressure. And that's, believe me, that fish is one giant nerve ending. Everything's a nerve ending. So just that little bit of downward pressure keeps them up. And if they go down on you, go to free spool. Just sit back, go to free spool, let him pull out 200 or 300 feet of line. And I remembered with Jed, I just said, go to free spool. And he's looking at me like, that's against everything I've ever thought. I said, just go to free spool, do it.
Yeah, those stripes were taking it. Took Jed an hour and 40 minutes on a stripe.
You've been here for an hour. you're dicking around with it for an hour. Just go to free spool. The clock's ticking, pal. Let's go.
Right.
You know.
Right. Yeah.
And in 5 minutes, the thing's jumping on the surface, and we get to wind, catch up to slack and get back on it. And okay, there's the release. Now we got the release. So now you can just crank the drag and really pull on him. He's right there. So go harden the paint, and maybe we'll get the release shot that we all want.
Sounds good.
It's been magical having you guys in here.
It's good to be here.
Really.
Got a lot of war stories.
Yeah, I like it. We got to do this again.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Seriously.
Don't invite Rufus. That way I can talk a little more.
Yeah, right.
We'll do the Pat Ford special.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well, you should.
Yeah.
This guy's got too many stories to not have him on by himself.
No, I see that.
I was just agitating you. That wasn't serious.
Plethora of knowledge in the fishing world.
No, I think both of you are. I mean, this has been. I've just enjoyed it. Just sitting back and hearing the stories.
I love doing podcasts. I love sharing information, talking about conservation. Getting people motivated.
Yeah.
Go do something at the local level. Go yell at some county commissioner.
I'm glad you're ending it like that. Because I really think that. I mean, it's so important to us here on the show, in the studio, and what we do. I mean, we always say you can paint another painting, you could do another design or whatever like that, or you could take another photo, and what's it all worth at the end of the day? Like, really, what's the matter here? Not what's the matter, but what's the matter here that we're getting at? And it really is conservation at the end of the day, and that's really
awareness.
That's really kind of the goal of the show.
Yeah, but the artwork and the photography and the articles and the podcasts and stuff, that's all just bringing the knowledge of what's going on out to the public. And there's not a lot one person can do, but if there's enough noise, maybe someday something will happen. I mean, the Bonefish Tarpon Trust has now gotten a sanctuary for where the permits spawn off Western Dry Rocks.
Yeah, Western Dry Rocks. Yeah.
And they've got a whole bunch of the same things in the Bahamas where they're in the bonefish spawn. They've got off limits and stuff. And it's just a question of just doing it one niche at a time.
Yep.
So it'll add up.
Bonefish Tarpon Trust, Billfish Foundation, CCA, Coastal Conservation Association, and Captains for Clean Water, like all great organizations to get involved with. I mean, they're all doing the work, and get involved. There are things you can do.
Absolutely.
There's plenty that you can do, actually.
Yeah.
You be
just
try to be a Starbright do-gooder. For crying out loud. Let's start at the low level there. You know what I mean? Let's do something there. Do something to get noticed.
Okay, so when I was a kid, there was George DeBay, who owned a tackle store on Worth Avenue in Palm Beach.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I didn't know him then, but he ended up moving over to West Palm. And the Palm Beach Pier that went right out from Worth Avenue when I was a kid, and then the pier went away in, I don't know, 67 or 66 or something. I was like 4 years old. And George moved over to West Palm, and I got introduced to him by my brother and a gentleman named Zed Bennett. And Zed was just, a fisherman, a jetty conch. So I became a jetty conch. And I became a kid helper, which was what DeBay's little thing was with kids. He had a little business card, and his logo was the fat cat. It was like a gray tabby cat, a big fat gray tabby cat. And he'd give you that card. And to this day, I use some of his wisdom and really control your emotions were the 3 words that he said to me that have stuck with me my whole life. And the kid helper, I'd be on the Lake Worth Pier as a kid, and someone would get a catfish on, and I'd help them take it off.
Mm-hmm.
Or someone would drop something, and I'd pick it up, or, just common courtesy stuff.
Right.
But there was a little bit of a reasoning behind it, because this gentleman told me to do it, and said, this will make you a better person, and do it. Because I didn't have a father. My father had passed and so forth. So, I was just a little kid doing it, and it was great. And it's, those moments and those are what make this sport great and what make the conservation issue and podcast and everything, to get that word out, especially to your kids and to the next generation.
100%. Well, that's really
because
that's the end game there.
They're going to be the bearers of this torch.
That's the end game.
Yep.
Listen. I could talk to you guys forever.
Yeah,
we're going to cut this short now. So
short after 4 hours.
Yeah, we're going to cut this. We're going to cut.
This is a short version.
Yeah.
So we're going to thank our sponsors a little bit. Thanks to Joey Cardi. Thanks to Papa's Pilar Rum for providing the libations today and all the support that we need to keep it going. Thanks for the W Sauce here for keeping our food tasty.
Big Bear. I love that stuff.
Yeah, the Bear Holman's, and they got the new breakfast sauce out. So,
let me see that.
It's kind of cool. And
breakfast sauce.
Yeah. So
Bear and Burton.
Thanks for joining us. Thanks for coming up. Thanks for you driving up from Miami and you guys meet me in the middle from Jensen Beach and hanging out. So, all right, we're going to end this how we always do. Your ego is not your amigo. Always do your best, and at the end of the day, just let God do the rest, and do not ever forget that no matter where we are, no matter what we're doing, we're all connected by water. Thank you.
True.